Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is Monday the 25th of September 2023. Good morning to everyone. We're back from London. We are back in the old studio. I'm looking very big. Why am I so big on the screen? What? I'm going to move back a little bit. I'm too big. I'm sorry for anyone watching this on the TV. Is she taking over the thing? Like Godzilla or something. Okay, I'll sort that out. I promise I'll sort that out. Morning all, hello, hi campers, guten morning all, and all that jazz. So today, I just wanted to talk about the real world. That's what I wanted to talk about today, the real world. The reason why is that I had a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of a ding-dong, with a Brexit voter over the weekend who was adamant that we shouldn't be out saying that we want to rejoin the EU. Because obviously that's not what they did, you know. Hang on, I've got a light down here. Let me just turn this little light on here. Might make the green screen work a bit better. There you go. And essentially, what this argument boiled down to was this guy's attitude was that if we hadn't left the EU, then all these bad things would have happened. Okay, so the bad things that would have happened included us being taken into the euro against our will, because that's what Cameron wants to do, you know. And I was like, Ian too in the chat there. Thank you very much for the super chat. Sad news, I'm afraid. I was going to impose a tax on flapping your arms really hard, but Rishi Sunak took time out of his busy schedule to block it. Well, that's nice, isn't it? There's a few things to talk about on that front. It's just the Tory party just absolutely not being functional and not fit for purpose. But we'll come back to that later. And I also want to mention the fact that this idiot that we have as our Home Secretary, Sue Ellen Braverman, named after the character from Dallas or Dynasty. I can never get those two. I always get those two mixed up. Anyway, she's kind of interfered in this ongoing murder case against a Met police officer. Phil made a very good video about this yesterday. She shouldn't be talking about it. Even as a private citizen, she shouldn't be talking about it. She definitely shouldn't be talking about it as literally the Home Secretary. But look, let's get back to what I wanted to talk about. So essentially, all of this guy who was arguing with about Brexit, he claimed to be a Yorkshire miner, and he said that all these bad things would have happened had we not pulled out the EU. And I kept on saying, well, listen, you live in this world of hypotheticals of what might have happened, what may have happened, but I live in the real world, and here is a real world consequence of Brexit. For instance, the amount that our economy is the great example. He mentioned 1992 about the exchange rate mechanism, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna start going on about Gordon Brown's selling the gold in a moment. But yeah, the exchange rate mechanism in 1992. Yeah, that was a disaster. Yeah, okay. But in the years between 1992 and 2007, our economy doubled. Okay, so if he's looking at that and going, well, that was a disaster, the economy doubled in the 15 years after that happened. From 2007 to today, our economy has not grown a dirty penny. I will keep saying this until everyone understands and gets it and goes, oh my God, this is huge. Because in that same time period, the Irish economy has more than doubled in the same time period. And do you know what? They had COVID too. They had the invasion of Ukraine pushing up energy prices too. They had all kinds of problems too. They had the credit crunch happen to them as well. And yet, they were there making all extra money. I know that it's not evenly distributed as much as we would like it to be, but at least their economy has grown by a lot. Now, I think per capita, PPP, it's the highest in the EU, in Ireland. Someone might want to check that out. I think it's the second highest in Europe after Norway. I want to check that out. Rachel, thank you very much. I don't understand why BBC and the Headbanger Press don't cover the march, but why didn't Channel 4? Well, Rachel, I mean, thanks very much for the super chat. I never expect them to cover the marches that we have. I mean, even during the height of the Brexit wars, when we had hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, it didn't really get much coverage. And the BBC's attitude is, well, if we covered every single protest, then there'll be no room for the other news. And on the day that we did protest, there was also an XL bully protest, or pro XL bully protest, and there was also an anti-ULEZ protest at the same time in the same area. So it was all a bit like, okay, who are you with? Who are you with? Okay, we'll walk down this street, you walk down that street. So yeah, lots of protests going on. But the Brexit is the hate that dare not say its name. I mean, look, we are living in a society in which the main parties, including the Liberal Democrats, don't want to talk about it. They don't want to don't mention the war, don't mention the Brexit. That's going to be it going into the next election. Don't mention the Brexit. And you know what? Okay, right, I'll live with it if it means we can get the Tories. Let's just get the Tories out first. As much as I would love us to rejoin the EU tomorrow, I want to get the Tories out first. Anyway, back to living in cloud cuckoo land. So essentially, this guy was saying that the real world consequences of Brexit were nothing to worry about compared with the fantasy, the hypothetical situation we would be in had we not left the EU, the hypothetical situation in which we had developed vaccines first and then been able to get loads more of it when the AZ or the AZ vaccination turned out that it caused blood clots and it could cause blood clots in younger people. We had a good few months over the summer of 2021 where we didn't have enough vaccines, and that's why we fell behind in the race, even though we were the first to start and we got to the first jump first. After that, all the other horses caught up with us and we didn't actually finish the race first, and we still haven't got the most vaccinated people in the EU by a mile, by an absolute mile. I think Portugal has the most vaccinated people. So, we didn't win that race. We started well, but we didn't win it. And had we been part of the EU, we could have had the AstraZeneca jab, and then when that was found out that to be problematic for younger people, we could have switched very quickly to Pfizer, but we couldn't do that. But that's another matter. So these other countries all had the same problems. Germany, I mentioned the German economy, which has grown since 2007. It is now 4.26 trillion. We are on 3 trillion. We were scheduled to, we were en route. We were prophesized to overtake the German economy in our size if we kept going the speed that we were going at, even after the credit crunch. And the Tories came in 2010 and they said austerity, because, nothing generates more money for an economy than taking money out of people's pockets. Let's make the rich richer. Record profits and record poverty all happening at the same time. It's good, that, isn't it? Well, it's almost as though the two things are connected. And the idea that that people shouldn't have money, are they mad? Like, the people who need that money will spend it in this country. They won't squirrel it away in an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. They won't do that because they live here. And what do they buy? They buy stuff that is usually highly taxed. Let's put it that way. In this country, they get the bus somewhere. They're not flying out on a private jet that's registered in another country with a pilot who's from Spain or Morocco or from America. No, they're literally spending money on the bus with a British bus driver, a British bus in this country. These things matter because this is how an economy works. You need as many people as possible to be educated and have a bit of money. And you make money. And you see this time and time again when you look at Ireland, when you look at Norway, when you look at successful capitalist models around the world, are the ones that are actually the most socialist in terms of people helping each other out and not just the rich gobbling up all the money. But this is an ex-coal miner I was talking to, a working class Tory essentially, who was defending Brexit because he honestly believed in all this fantasy stuff that was invented by the tabloid press, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, about bananas not being... He didn't mention bananas, to be fair to the guy, but he absolutely believed, still, now, today, that had we stayed in the EU, our economy would be in the toilet. And the weird thing is, our economy is in the toilet, but he doesn't want to acknowledge that. And this goes across this right-wing mentality across pretty much everything, and you can link it all together. You know, if you're a mad conspiracy theorist, you could have like a little thing on the wall there with, you know, the string and the pins all together, and it's like, yeah, stick a pin in, can believe in conspiracy theories, yeah, going in for spirituality, going in for the Tories, going in for Brexit, going in for Trump, going in for Erdogan, going in for Bolsonaro, going in for Marine Le Pen. They're all like, it's all part of this subset of people who live in a freaking fantasy world, and they don't want to look at the facts that are staring them in the face. We are poorer. There's no one in this watching this in Britain right now who's not feeling the pinch in some way or some form. Whether it is like, oh my God, I can't even take first class flights anymore. That's a whole different type of pinch. But even that, it's like all the way down to going for a pint of milk, and it's now 90p for a pint of milk, whereas a couple of years ago it was 50p. I mean, it's just like the level of our, you know, they call it the cost of living crisis, but the level that our standard of living has gone down rather than up. And at best, for some people, it's maybe stayed the same. At best. But there's only 0.0001% of the population who've done well out of this Tory government. And they're probably the Tories themselves, the actual, the party. The rest of us, it's been awful. And now the government are looking at backhealing the bit of HS2 from Manchester to Birmingham. That's not great, isn't it? That's not great, is it? I mean, One Angry Pagan, Jenrick destroyed by Kunsberg. Really? I missed that one. I saw Victoria Derbyshire take him to task, which is very satisfying. Was it him? I can't remember. I still feel I'm too big on this screen here. Oh God, you know what it is? It's because I'm zoomed in slightly. There you go. I'm just going to move around like that's better. Slightly less uncomfortable. Don't like it when people are right up against the screen. You know, people get a photo and it's like the face is the entire photo. Yeah, I'm a bit weird about things like that. Anyway, so what do we do? This is the question I want to pose now. It's I've been yabbing on for about 10 minutes. So what do we do? Like, how do you deal with people who, whenever you say, here is a real thing, look, here is a real Rubik's Cube that I've magically solved, right? And they're like, no, it's not. Well, this isn't actually a Rubik's Cube. This is a top toy, but you know what I mean? They're like, no, that's a ball. And you're like, I'm sure it's a Rubik's Cube. I'm like, no, I read on the internet that it's a ball. And you're just like, what can you do with these people who have just left planet Earth in terms of reality, encouraged by the right-wing press, encouraged by people like Murdoch and Rothermere and the Barclay brother. There's only one. And, you know, and all these politicians. Don't believe what you see with your own two eyes. Just all that matters is how you feel. Or more specifically, how I want you to feel. And this is the 1984 that we're living in at the moment. And what the weird thing is, it's not imposed by the state. This is people choosing their own cage, choosing to live in chains, choosing to live in a 1984 world in which they do not believe facts. Climate change denial. Best one. I mean, come on. We're seeing a disaster happening around the world weekly, if not daily. Now people are like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's weather, innit? Like, no, this doesn't normally happen. And the amount that these carbon crisis, the climate crisis disasters are costing. I mean, I saw a figure in America. It was something like $250 billion last year to clean up the mess from all of the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the torrential downpours and the people dying of heat stroke. Anyway, I'm going to jump into the chat, see if anyone's got any ideas here. I have to leave the private plane at home and take a normal plane from the airport. Musical Bean says it's £1.50 for 4 pints. Yes, in the supermarket if you buy a 4-pint jug, but if you are going to the local shop here, it was 50p. It's now 90p for 1 pint. Okay, for 1 pint. That's in the local corner shop here. All right, in Durham. So I'm not like living in something rich. I'm literally in an old mining village. So whatever. The houses around here are absolutely tiny. You would not believe. Of course they're in a fantasy world. It's a world where flags and statues and Mr. Potato Head's Wang is vitally important, but human rights aren't. Which is very true, Jez. Very true. John says I had to leave the private plane at home and take a normal plane from the airport. Well, yeah, exactly. 31 Blaze. I have mixed feelings about HS2. It's a total waste of money compared with improving all the northern networks, and it's destroyed many irreplaceable habitats, but it might help the north. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to say about HS2, because some of you might have heard this before, but finish it to Birmingham. That's a fait accompli. Finish it to Birmingham. We haven't seen our economy grow in 16 years because of the Tories. And in that time, the amount that this is going to cost has just spiraled. And I get that. I understand that. I am Northerner. I am Northerner. I am a Northerner, born and bred. Went to Manchester Uni. Born in Liverpool, went to Manchester Uni. Now live in Durham. And I feel like we've been absolutely massively let down. I saw an interview with Andy Burnham saying, why is it when it's the north, it's either or, you can have this or you can have that, whereas in London they get whatever they want. Oh, you need a cross-rail link. Oh yeah, the Elizabeth line, you can have that, worth billions, costing billions. But you can have that, a few years later, well, never mind, it's London. But anything else, it's like, oh, it's going to be a few years later, it's going to cost a bit more. So ideologically, I get that there is a big problem with them sacking off this leg. However, having said that, the damage that's been done already to forests and land and things like that, it sticks in my craw a little bit. We are a small island. We don't necessarily need trains that can go at over 200 miles an hour, because by the time they get to that speed, they usually have to slow down because they're about to hit the next station. We're not that big a country. And at the moment, the fastest trains from London to Liverpool are 2 hours and 7 minutes. And I think that's enough. Do you know what I mean? That's fine. That suits me. That's the all right. That's an acceptable amount of time to get from Liverpool to the city centre. That only takes 20 minutes to get from Liverpool to London. From Durham here, it is exactly 3 hours. It's 3 hours on the train. Again, it's not amazing, but it's fine. It's fine. It could be speeded up, though. And here's how we speed it up. And I've said this before. Instead of having a dedicated new rail line for fast trains, which require certain things, like they can't have too much elevation, they can't go up or down too much, they can't have a bend that's too sharp, they have to have very, very smooth sloping bends that go for miles, because obviously they're going very fast. And if you think about how the mechanics of that work, you have to do that. So as a result of having to have very straight tracks and very level tracks, it means ploughing through stuff, ploughing through fields, ploughing through virgin forests. I don't know how many virgin forests, or let's just say ancient forests in this country. And that's a bad thing. And I don't see why that's necessary. What I would do is I would build specific new lines, slow lines, which can have level crossings, which can have swing bridges for all I care, which can have turntables for the choo-choo train to turn around, like slow rail one. That's what I want. So effectively, you can have all of the regional trains that never get more than 30 miles an hour. Do you know what I mean? The regional trains, the local trains, and the freight trains, they can travel on these new lines that we have built, which we could reuse literally hundreds of miles worth of track bed that is there. That is already there. There are viaducts, there are bridges, there are tunnels that are already there. They exist, and we have to maintain them. If that massive viaduct over Merthyr Tydfil, if a brick falls off that and smashes into someone's head, the local council there are going to have to pay a lot of money, aren't they, in compensation? So we're maintaining this infrastructure that's not being used for anything. There was if you go down, if you know Liverpool well, nearby Costco, and just sort of north of the city centre, there was a bit of the road there, Great Charlotte Street, Great Homer Street, I forgot what the name is, Great George Street, I think, and it was just a small stretch. It's probably less than 100 meters, probably let's say 50 meters, if that, of the road needed repairing, right? And the bill came in at over £10 million to fix this little bit of road down by Costco. Why? Because it was a bridge. It was a bridge over what used to be the rail line going to, it went through the Waterloo Tunnel, and then it went to the Victoria Tunnel, and then it went to Riverside Station, which closed in 1971. And so you've got the road, it's just like a normal road, but it's actually, a section of it is a bridge, a metal bridge that had been just filled in with rubbish. Over the years, the track has obviously been taken up. There was nothing there anymore. But when they repaired it, because it was rusted to hell, they had to basically replace the whole entire bridge, they put a bridge back in case one day they might want to put a train line back in, which I think would have to knock down Costco to be able to do it. But my point is that instead of it just costing X amount, for fixing a bit of road, it ended up costing millions because we were effectively putting back in infrastructure that we weren't even using anymore. And we have hundreds of miles worth of this stuff, viaducts, tunnels, embankments, all this kind of stuff, all over the country. And I know that a lot of them are maintained into cycle tracks, which is really cool, or walking trails, which is really cool as well. But I am more prepared to lose a walking trail than I am to lose an ancient forest. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see another 1,000-year-old tree cut down. Okay, look, I'm sorry, you have to walk somewhere else. There are plenty of other old railway lines that you can use. But in Liverpool, we had the Rala, which is the old loop line. Here in Durham, we have a train line that was a train line, isn't a train line anymore, for getting the miners to the villages, which we go, and that's our cycle track, and it's great. And I wouldn't necessarily want that to have the line put back in, because it would mean that we wouldn't be able to use it for cycling and walking. But at the same time, here's the choice. Lose that and have to use one of the many other public footpaths around here. There are others. Others are available. Or lose a single 1,000-year-old tree. I think I would save the tree. I really do. So this is my plan. Take all of the slow trains off the East Coast Main Line and the West Coast Main Line and speed them up. Because if every single train is going 125 miles an hour, they can leave every 5 minutes. That's it. You can increase capacity in an insane amount, because you're not having to slow down and fix with the other. And also, we need to have nationalised trains so that the timetable is all run together. And if there's a driver missing or someone working on the trains missing, we can use a different person from a different train. And we don't have to say, no, they've signed a contract with a different operator, so we can't use them, even though they have literally exactly the same skills and they know the same bit of track like the back of their hand. No, we can't use that expert at doing that because they have signed a contract with a different private company. Anyway, right, okay, so that's a little bit of excursion there over to the perils and pitfalls of HS2 and what I would do with it. But what I will say is that the Tories do this. They will just U-turn on something. They will just scrap something because all they know is how to destroy, and they won't offer an alternative. That's their biggest crime. They're like. I always used to get a little bit snooty, pissy, whatever you want to call it, about the May Day protests that we used to have around the turn of the millennium. Because I saw these sort of posh, possibly privately educated white kids going to London and smashing stuff up like McDonald's. And I'm like, the people working in McDonald's are working on minimum wage. What are you doing? Like, why are you terrorizing these people? And they were smashing stuff up, but it was aimless. It wasn't like... They had signs saying down with capitalism, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, but what do you want? Like, give me something constructive. Don't just destroy something and don't give me something to replace it with. Tell me what system you want to go forward as humanity. I always go back to that sketch in Father Ted, down with this kind of thing. Careful now. It's like that. It's like, yeah, I think this thing is bad. So when we are fighting against Brexit, we are offering a solid solution. What's the solution, Graham? Well, we rejoined the EU. It was called the National Rejoin March for a reason. It's a positive thing. It's not just saying, oh, the EU's terrible. Oh, Britain's terrible. Oh, the Tories are terrible. We're actually saying, here's something that we could do that would help the country and help people have, the pound in their pocket not to be worth 86 pence as it is these days. Thank you very much to One Angry Pagan there for the super chat. And we used to be known for great infrastructure projects. I do hope Labour will at least splash out a bit on them, as we do need to update stroke make new infrastructure. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not really holding my breath on this first parliament of the Labour administration, if and when they win, just because there's no money. You know, this joke that dickhead Greg Hands goes around with the bit of paper and he's like, oh, there's no money. He said there's no money. And you're like, it was a joke, mate. It was obviously money. But like, now, there's no, literally, we are so stuffed. Like the economy hasn't grown in 16 years, man. So I can't see there being much money to put into infrastructure. And here's the thing. We talk about the war, and we talk about the war all the time in this stupid country, but after the war, we talk about the birth of the NHS rising from the ashes of World War II. And that's a really good point. At a time when Britain was on its arse, we managed to create the National Health Service. However, we did get assistance from, Marshall Plan type things around, we got assistance. And also, at the time, the Empire was still a thing, which was handy if we needed some extra money. And so there were different factors in play. But one of the problems that we have now for Labour going into this new administration is that the Tories haven't just ruined our economy, they've ruined our reputation. And this is possibly more damaging in the long term than them wrecking our economy, because it means that if Labour want to borrow money in the next parliament to build things, to build infrastructure, to help deprived communities, they are not going to be able to borrow at the rate that they used to be able to borrow at. So, for instance, if you wanted some investment, you could go to the European Investment Bank with very, very, very low interest rates because they had a AAA rating. We no longer have Standard & Poor or Moody's AAA rating. Effectively, that just means that we have to pay more interest on any state loans, any kind of like funding, any infrastructure funding. And so this is going to tie the hands of Labour in the next administration, because if they do decide to spend X amount of money, several billion pounds, improving the public transport infrastructure, for instance, they're going to be paying way more interest on that loan than they would have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even just before Brexit. That has been catastrophic. And it means that access as well to these funds is, especially from private enterprise, is diminishing, because people don't want to invest in the UK because they see us as a bit dodgy, a bit woo, a bit way. Can't trust me. I'm a Tory, can't trust me. And because of all the U-turns, because of all the backbiting, because of all the hatred that has been poured out to our European partners, it's had such an amount of damage done to this country. And this is the real world. This is what I'm wanted to talk about for this entire episode. Angry Nan, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. We have a huge problem right now with people who refuse to live in the real world. And I don't want to sound insensitive. I've lost people to cancer myself. But what I see it is, it's like when someone is diagnosed with cancer and their first response to it is to not believe the diagnosis because it's scary. I get it. I completely get it. And they don't tell anyone, and they might not get the treatment in time because they don't want to believe that this could happen to them. They don't want to think about just, how life-changing it is and, what can come of it. And I feel the same way that people are feeling. I feel that people feel the same way when it comes to things like climate change. They just shut down. They'd rather live in a fantasy world in which Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan and who's that other person with a weird voice, Jordan Peterson, have all the answers. They have all the answers, don't you know? And what you got to do is just hate on poor people, or hate on trans people, or hate on ethnic minorities, or hate on the French, or whatever it is that you want to hate on, because that'll make it all better. That'll make the bad man go away. That will give your boo-boo a kiss. Do you know what I mean? This is embarrassing that there are adults, fully grown adults, who go in for this sort of thing. But it's not just sad. It's really damaging our society. Because we have a significant proportion of our population who live in cloud cuckoo land. That's it. What can we do when we have in America, we've got millions of people flocking to Trump, who is being indicted for various crimes. You've got people in France voting for Marine Le Pen, knowing that she's a Nazi and not caring. It's like, okay, you've got people in Italy voting for the fascist party when they know what happened last time they voted for fascists in the war, and millions of Italians died as a direct consequence. But these are real things that really happened. And I think we need to address this. We need to really find a way of coming back against Michael Gove's "we're sick of experts" line, because that's one of the most damaging lines that anyone's ever said in British political history, because he knew who he was talking to. He knew his audience there. He knew that Brexit voters don't necessarily live in the real world. They don't necessarily understand how the real world works, and I guess that's scary, and I guess they then make decisions based out of fear rather than logic and compassion, which can go together, So I don't know what the answer is, unfortunately, and I know that I just said, I hate it when people put up signs saying, down with this kind of thing, but they don't offer a solution. But I would say that in my life, I try to address this as much as possible and talk to people who do live in cloud cuckoo land and hit them with some hard facts and say, look, this is the reality. This is where we're living right now. We have a toxic culture in this country. Everyone's at each other's throats. Neighbours have fallen out. Families have fallen out. Families have been torn apart by political issues, especially Brexit. You've got the economy, like I say, not grown in 16 years. You've got borrowing being more difficult than ever before. You've got an entire generation of people who can't get on the housing ladder. You've got infrastructure projects that are going to hell because we haven't got the money anymore. And we can't borrow the money because no one wants to invest in us. We're in serious problem, serious difficulties here as a country. Now, what we can do is we could be an addict and like an alcoholic or a gambling addict or a drug addict and just double down and just lose ourselves into the reverie and just OD. And that's the end of Britain. Or we can buckle up, we can sober up, and we can, give ourselves a metaphorical slap across the face and go, oh, hang on, this isn't great. This is not what I want. This is not what I want for me. Never mind the future generations living in this country or on this planet. And to get to that point, I think we need to have more discussions. I think we need to tackle more people who make up this kind of stuff. And for anyone who says to you, oh well, it would have been worse. It would have been worse. I just thought actually the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, he makes this happen. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't make it happen. So he encourages it when he says, "But Labour would be worse." It's a hypothetical. Labour would be worse. Yeah, we're really bad, but Labour would be worse. I don't want to deal with that. I want to deal with the real world, right? What's Labour offering? What's the Tories offering? At the moment, Labour can offer me one thing. No Tories in power anymore. That sounds good to me. I'll take it. Any port in a storm, I will take that, because that's something real and something that they can actually deliver. And I know that they can actually deliver that and get it delivered and actually push it through the freaking door when the Tories have to face the reckoning at their reckoning at the next general election. But I just want to leave you on that note to say, if you do know someone in your life who is increasingly, detached from reality, it might be worth taking them to the pub, taking them out for a coffee or something, just sitting down with them and saying, I think you've got a problem and we need to talk about it. Let's call it an intervention. I don't know. But we can't go on like this, and we can't just wave away older people that we know. Not all old people who have lost their freaking minds, let's say, to the forces of the Daily Mail and the Tory party in 55 Tufton Street, and just leave them to it. We can't leave them to it anymore. I think we've got to challenge them and say, look, seriously, I don't mind if you want to continue to believe this at the end of the day, but please do not vote in the next election. Please just don't vote in the next election. Anyway, wealth distribution is needed from One Angry Pagan, and thank you very much for the super chat. There's a bit of wealth distribution there. Thank you very much, One Angry Pagan. Titchy Richie. My shield at your backs, guys. Oh, thank you very much, One Angry Pagan. Brilliant. So Phil will be back in the morning at 9:30 for another morning brew. We'll be putting out some more shows. I should be back tonight with Supertankiii for the Square Jar. So look out for that. If we are going to go ahead with it, I'll try and get the what's it called? The countdown up as soon as possible. So that'll be at 8 o'clock tonight. So join us for the Swear Jar. But we're trying to fill this jar full of swears. We're getting quite far. We're doing quite well. So in the meantime, thank you very, very much for watching, and as always, with all the chat and the super chats and everything, and it's a great community that we're building here, and each and every one of you is awesome in your own little way. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.